Good morning, everyone. What we have discussed in the last session, do you guys remember? What we discussed in the last session, do you guys remember? Can anyone explain that what we discussed in the last session was? Can anyone explain about that, what we discussed in the last session? Guys, am I audible or not?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, can anyone tell me what we have learnt in the previous classes?
Yeah, we were discussed about the JSON, why JSON is required.
Yeah, in the last session, we discussed about what is a JSON and why we need to go for JSON, how to convert Java object to the JSON data, what is a Jackson API, what is a JSON API, and we also discussed the architecture, how consumer application will communicate with the provider application, how many times that JSON data will be converted to object and the object data will be converted to JSON data. And also we discussed about the most important part for API development, which is HTTP protocol. So we discussed about what is the HTTP protocol and why we need to use HTTP protocol and what are the HTTP methods available, what are the HTTP status codes available, what is the purpose of those status codes, okay, and what is Postman, how to send a request to the URL by using Postman, what is HTTP request structure, and what is HTTP response structure also we understood. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is used as a mediator between client and server. That means when consumer and provider is communicating, HTTP protocol will be used as a mediator. Consumer application will send the HTTP request to the provider application. Provider application will send HTTP response back to consumer application. Consumer will convert object to JSON, will send to the provider. Provider will convert JSON back to object and will execute the logic. After logic is executed, provider will convert the response object to JSON and will send to the consumer. Again, consumer will convert that JSON data back to Java object. So to transfer the JSON data from consumer to provider, provider to consumer, we are going to use HTTP protocol. Okay, HTTP is a stateless protocol, nothing but whatever the conversation happened between the consumer and provider, it cannot remember that. Whatever the conversation that is happened between the consumer and provider cannot be remembered by HTTP protocol. And in the HTTP protocol, there are several methods available. So this is the language that is used between consumer and provider. Consumer will send a GET request. Consumer will send GET request or POST request or PUT request or patch request or delete request. GET means it is used to get the data from the server. POST means it is used to send the data to the server. PUT means it is used to update the server. PUT means it is going to do the full update. That means the complete resource will be updated when we send a PUT request to the server. When we go for the patch request, it is going to do the partial update. And delete means it is used to delete the resource at the server. So like this, there are several HTTP methods available. By using these methods, client will send a request to the server. Consumer will send the request to the server. When client send a request to the server, server will send the response back to the client by using some HTTP status codes. What are the HTTP status codes available? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that categories are available. 1 represent it is information related status code. 2 represents it is success. 3 represents it is redirection. 4 represents it is client error. 5 represents it is server error. So based on this status code, we need to understand how our request got processed by the server, how our request processed by the provider, we will understand by using these HTTP status codes only. So mainly we need to understand 2 series, 4 series, 5 series. 1 and 3 we can't see. 2 series nothing but it is a successful. Whatever the request we sent to the server processed our request successfully. And 4 series, client send a request but it is invalid request. Client is sending invalid request to the server, then server will send the status code with the 4 series number 400, 401, 402, 403, 404. For every number again there is a meaning. Okay, 404 means resource not found, 400 means bad request, 401 means unauthorized. Like that, for every number again there is a separate meaning, that also we need to understand. So high level, 4 series means it is a client mistake, and the 5 series means it is a server mistake. So client send a request to the server, but server is failed to process that request. Then you will get the 5 series as a error response, 500, 501, 502, 503, like that, multiple status codes available. And we understood what is Postman. Postman is one tool that is used for API testing. When we are developing the APIs, UI will not be available, only backend logic we are going to develop. Then how to test our backend logic is working as expected or not. That's where we are going to use Postman software. So what is the meaning of this Postman? Postman is one of the most popular tool used by the developers to test the APIs. So my API is developed, my provider application is developed. In that, get method, put method, post method, delete methods are available. So in order to send all those HTTP methods, we can go for Postman tool. Okay, so by using that we can debug how our API is working, where is the problem in the API, what is the root cause of the problem, all those things we can understand with the help of Postman. So if you see, I have given one dummy endpoint URL. So one provider application URL I have given for you for testing. So we are sending get request to this URL, no headers, no body. I'm sending a request, get request to this URL. I'm not passing any headers, I'm not passing any body. Okay. Then I got some response. I got some quotation as a response, and the response status code is available. So here we need to understand how the request is going to the server, how the response is coming from the server. This is HTTP request structure, and this is HTTP response structure. In the HTTP request, if you see in the Postman, method is available. What type of request you want to send? Get or post or put or patch or delete. Get request I want to send. And to whom you want to send? Resource URL, provider URL. So get request, provider URL. So that is the first part in the request. Then headers. You can pass some metadata. You can pass some security tokens also as part of the header. And the next one, body. So here you can see body is available. You can send some data in the request body, like your XML data or JSON data. Any data that you are sending in the request body is called as payload. Okay, fine. So then we got the response also. In the response, we got the status code, we got the status message, response metadata, response headers, and response payload. IRCTC will send passenger data in the request body. That is a payload. IRCTC will send passenger data in the request body as a payload. Sorry, Make My Trip will send the passenger data. Make My Trip is a consumer. IRCTC is a provider. Make My Trip will take the passenger data, will send it to the IRCTC in the request body as a payload. Then IRCTC will take that JSON, will book the ticket for the passenger, will send the ticket data back to the Make My Trip as a response body payload. So Make My Trip will send JSON, IRCTC also will send JSON. Request body, response body. The request body, response body is representing payload. What is the meaning of a payload? Any business data that we are sending from one application to another application is called payload. Make My Trip will send passenger data as a payload. That is a business data to book the ticket. IRCTC will book the ticket, will send ticket payload to the Make My Trip. So any data that we are exchanging from one application to another application is called as payload. Are you guys clear? This is what we have learnt in the previous session. This is what we have learnt in the previous session. All of you clear? Anybody having any questions? Today we are going to start the development of the REST API. Before going to learn the development of the REST API, anybody having any questions related to this HTTP protocol? I have shared these notes also in the material. A beautiful material is getting prepared for you. Along with it, earlier, we used to write only the text in the notepad. So you guys asked me to give some Word document along with the notes. So after the class is completed, every day topic I am updating in the material along with the screenshots and I am uploading in the portal. This is very, very useful to refer whatever the topics that we have discussed in the class. Anybody having any questions before going to start the development of our application? So we need to start our REST API development.
What is
Before going
metadata that we
to
are
start
saving?
our REST API development, do you guys have any questions? Is my voice clear for everyone? I'm not getting any response.
Yeah, you are audible, but what is
Sunday
metadata
effect,
over here?
guys. So all are in the sleeping mode. No voice. Festival effect and Sunday effect. People are in the sleeping mode. No response. They are not responding in the people are not responding in the chat box. People are not speaking also.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Hello.
Actually, I have a doubt like on metadata. Like, could you elaborate?
Metadata means data about the data, sir. That means when I am sending some JSON data in the request, right? I will tell that I am sending a JSON data. In the metadata, I will tell my payload format is JSON. That is metadata. Suppose somebody is sending JSON as payload. Some people may send XML as a payload. So what type of data we are sending in the request body that we can send as a metadata in the header. My data format is JSON. My data format is XML. And when we are implementing real world REST APIs, security will be implemented. The security tokens, so username, password, any JWT token, OAuth tokens, we are going to send in the request header. In order to identify who is sending this request, provider should identify which consumer sending this request. That consumer identity, consumer metadata, we are going to send in the request header as a key and value. Metadata nothing but data about the data. Who is sending this data, in which format they are sending the data, that can be represented by using request header. You got my point?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so very good. Now let us start the API development, guys. In order to develop the REST API that we already understood, there are two actors available. Okay, there are two actors available in the API development. So always the REST API development is going to start from the provider side. Okay, when you are going to learn any REST API development, always we need to start the development from the provider side. That means the application which is giving the services to other application is called as a provider application. So always we need to start the development from the provider side, because if some application is providing the services, then only other application can consume the services. So that's why always our REST API development will start from the provider side. In order to develop the provider application, we are going to use several annotations. Okay, so one of the main important annotation that we are going to use for the provider development, that is @REST controller. Okay, if you want to develop a REST API in the Spring Boot, the most important part that we need to know is REST controller development. Earlier, we have developed web applications by using controller annotation. But from now onwards, we are not going to use controllers. We are going to use REST controllers. From now onwards, we are going to use REST controller. Sir, what is the difference between controller and REST controller? Controller is used for C2B communication. So if you want to develop a application with the user interface, if you want to develop a web application with the user interface, then you need to go for controller concept. But when you are developing B2B application, business to business application, then we need to go for REST controller. REST controller means it will take a HTTP request, it will give the HTTP response. It will take JSON as the input, it will give JSON as the output. There is no UI. Controller plus response body is equal to REST controller. So when you want to develop a REST API, always we need to start the development from the provider side. How to develop a provider? To develop a provider, we are going to use one annotation. That annotation is REST controller annotation. What is the purpose of REST controller, guys? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of REST controller? What is REST controller and what is the purpose of REST controller? Come on, guys.
If you want to return JSON as a response, we use REST control.
Yeah, instead of saying that JSON, because it's not mandatory that every time we need to use a JSON, we can use XML also. REST controller means it is used to develop a REST API. It is used to develop a provider. It is used to develop a distributed application. When you want to develop a distributed application, when you want to develop a provider application, when you want to develop a REST API application, then we need to go for REST controller. REST controller is used for B2B communication, business to business communication. Then next one, once we develop the REST controllers, then inside that REST controller, we are going to use HTTP methods, guys. So we need to map our REST controller methods to GET request. To map your method to GET request, GET mapping. To map your request to POST request, we have POST mapping. Then similarly, we have PUT mapping. Then we have patch mapping and we have delete mapping. Okay. So when you are going to develop a REST API, your REST API methods should be mapped to HTTP request methods. Your REST API methods will be mapped to HTTP request methods. To map our REST API methods to HTTP request method, we are going to use GET mapping, POST mapping, PUT mapping, patch mapping, delete mapping. Every REST API method should be mapped to HTTP method. Then only consumer can send a request to that method by using HTTP protocol. So how to map our method to GET method? GET mapping, POST mapping, PUT mapping, patch, delete, like that. There are annotations available. By using these annotations, we can map our REST controller methods to HTTP protocol methods. So remember, when you want to develop a distributed application, then you need to use REST controller annotation. This will represent your Java class as a Spring Bean and as well as a distributed component. Inside that REST controller, we are going to write HTTP methods. How to represent our Java method to HTTP method? To represent Java method to HTTP method, we are going to use these annotations. Along with that, we are going to use a few more annotations. One is @request param, another one is @path variable, and another one is @request body. Okay, as part of our provider development, three more annotations we are going to use. Request param, path variable, request body annotations will be available. What is the purpose of this request param annotation? Request param annotation is used to take the request variable, query parameter. So client is sending some data in the URL, key value. So if you want to read the data from the URL by using key and value pair, then we are going to use request param annotation. Suppose client is sending the data directly without key value, then it is a path parameter. To read the path parameter, we are going to use an annotation called path variable. Request param annotation is used to read the query parameters. Path variable annotation is used to read the path parameter. Suppose if a client is not sending the data in the URL because of some security, client is sending the payload in the request body. So to read the data from the request body, we will use one annotation called @request body annotation. If you want to read the data from the request body, then there is an annotation called request body annotation is available. So if you want to develop a provider, if you want to develop a REST API by using Spring Boot, then you need to use these annotations. One is a REST controller, another one is get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, patch mapping, delete mapping. Okay, so REST controller is used to represent our Java class as a distributed component, and these are the HTTP methods available in order to map our REST API methods to the protocol methods. And these methods, these annotations available to read the data from the client application. Client is sending some data to the provider. Some clients may send data in the URL as a query parameter, as a path parameter. If a client is sending the data in the URL, to read that data, you can go for request param, you can go for path variable. If a client is sending the data in the request body, to read the data payload, basically I told you, client may send the data in the payload. If anybody is sending the data in the payload, then to read the data from the payload, we will use an annotation called request body annotation. So if you want to develop a provider, I mean to say, if you want to develop a REST API, these annotations we are going to use. REST controller, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, patch mapping, delete mapping, request param, path variable, request body. So total there are 9 annotations available. So the complete REST API development we will do by using these 9 annotations only. REST controller, it is used to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. Not only Spring Bean, it will make our class as a distributed component. One of the famous interview question, what is the difference between controller and REST controller? Controller is used for C2B communication. REST controller is used for B2B communication. Controller will return the view page. REST controller will return the direct response. So REST controller is used to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean, and it will also make our Java class as a distributed component, providing the services to other application. It will make our application as a provider if the REST controller is available. Inside that REST controller, you can write a lot of methods. Every method in the REST controller should map to HTTP protocol. How to map REST controller methods to HTTP protocol? Get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, patch mapping, delete mapping. If a client want to get the data from the server, get mapping. If a client want to send the data to the server to insert a new record, post mapping. If a client want to update the record, complete record update, put mapping. If a client want to do the partial update, then patch mapping. If a client want to delete the record, delete mapping. Similarly, client is sending a request to the server. In the request, client is sending some data in the URL as a key value, query parameter. To read the data from the URL, query parameter, request param annotation. If a client is sending the data in the URL as a path parameter, then path variable annotation, path variable annotation. If a client is sending request with request body, client is sending payload like passenger data or bank account information, something. Client is sending some data in the request body. To read the data from the request body, we are going to use one annotation called @request body annotation. So if you know the purpose of these annotations, then developing the REST API is very easy. Are you guys able to understand how to develop a provider? What annotations we are going to use to develop a provider?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you guys clear? What annotations we are going to use to develop a provider? Come on, can someone read the annotations I have listed down? Can
Yes, sir.
someone read out?
It is a REST controller,
Yes.
get mapping, post mapping, boot mapping, dash mapping, then delete mapping, and request parameter, request param, then path variable, request body. So these are the annotations.
Yes. Can you tell me the purpose of these annotations also?
Yeah, sir. REST controller we are using for developing our REST API, like provider API we can create using the REST controller, and through that we can send request like a client can send request to the provider and get response through REST API. We are using that REST controller, and for that creating REST controller, we are using multiple annotations. Those are get mapping. Get mapping we are using for getting data from provider API, like from provider if REST API, if we want to get data, we are using get mapping. Then post mapping, post annotation we are using when we want to create like any record inside the provider database, like new record. If you want to create, then we are using post. Put we are using for updating the records, like full record. If we want to update, then we are using put. Patch means a partial updation, like any particular field column we want to update means we are using patch, like how many fields we want to update us. Some fields we want to update means we will use put. Then patch, sorry, patch. That one patch. Delete means if we want to delete existing like record, we want to we will use delete method. Then for us request forum we are using for query parameter we are using for request forum. Path variable we are sending through like data through URL we are using. I have also doubt on path variable. Then a request body we are through body we are sending data.
Whatever the payload client is sending, to
Yes.
read the payload given by the client. In the HTTP request, client will send the payload. To read the payload data, we are going to use request body annotation.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Next up, once the provider development is completed, guys, so this provider can be tested. There is no UI, it's completely backend application. Once the provider development is completed, we can test that provider by using a tool called Postman. Okay, good. Next one, once the provider development completed, we will go for consumer development. So what is the meaning of consumer? So the application which is accessing the services from other applications is called as a consumer application. So provider and consumer. Consumer application will send the request to the provider. Provider application will send the response back to the consumer. So who is a mediator? HTTP protocol we will use as a mediator between this consumer and provider. So consumer should send the HTTP request to the provider programmatically. As of now, we are sending the request by using browser. So now suppose if you go to Google and if you type google.com, that means you are sending one HTTP request to the Google server and you got the web page as a response. When you go for B2B applications, right? Here, consumer should send one HTTP request to the provider programmatically. So by writing the Java code, you need to prepare the HTTP request and you need to send to the provider. Provider will execute that request logic and will send the response back to the consumer. So consumer should develop, consumer application should have the logic to send a HTTP request to the provider programmatically. So to develop this consumer application in the Spring Boot, we are having three approaches, guys. We can develop the consumer by using one predefined class called REST template class. In the Spring Boot, there is one predefined class available, which is REST template. By using REST template class, you can develop the consumer logic. What is the meaning of consumer? Which will access the provider. How to access the provider? By sending HTTP request. So that means programmatically, we need to create one HTTP request and we need to send that request to the provider. To create and send that HTTP request in the Spring Boot, there are three options available. One of the option is a REST template. Okay, then there is a second option is available, that is web client. By using REST template, you can develop the provider. By using web client also, you can develop a provider. Okay, so REST template, web client is available. And the third one, the third option that we are having to develop the consumer is FIAN client. So when you go for microservices, then we are going to use FIAN client approach to develop the consumers. So to develop a provider, REST controller is available. Inside that REST controller, some annotations we are going to use. Then how to develop a consumer? Consumer means the application which is accessing the services from other applications. In order to develop the consumer, we are having three options. What are those three options? One is called REST template, another one is called web client, third one is called FIAN client. So what these three components are going to help us, how they are going to help us? By using REST template, by using web client, by using FIAN client, we can create one HTTP request and we can send that HTTP request to the provider application. In the interview, they will ask these questions also. Can you tell me what is the difference between REST template and web client? What is the difference between REST template and web client? What is a FIAN client? Can you tell me what is FIAN client? When we need to use FIAN client? Okay, these all are very important for the interview. What is the difference between REST controller and controller? What is the difference between request param and path variable? What is the difference between get mapping, post mapping? What is the difference between put mapping and patch mapping? What is the difference between REST template and web client? What is the purpose of FIAN client? Lot of important topics, very important. Lot of interview questions will come from these topics here. Okay, so in order to develop a provider, REST controller we are going to use. In order to develop a consumer, three options available: REST template available, web client available, FIAN client available. Sir, when to go for REST template, when to go for web client, when to go for FIAN client? In the consumer development sessions, we are going to understand this topic. For now, just to have the idea. So if you want to develop a REST API, two parts will be available. One is called provider development, another one is called consumer development. To develop a provider, REST controller will be used. Provider means the application which is giving the services to other applications. So once the provider development completed, we need to test the provider. To test the provider, Postman tool we are going to use. Okay, by using Postman we can test how our provider is working, how our REST API is working. Then we will go for consumer development. The application which is accessing services from other applications is called as consumer application. That consumer can be developed in three ways. One is by using REST template. Second one is by using web client. Third one is by using FIAN client. Are you clear with my point? Guys, are you clear with my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Anybody having any questions as of now?
So what is the difference in HTTP and HTTPS?
HTTPS is a certificate, sir. One certificate will be added to the domain for the security. To transfer your data securely, HTTPS protocol will be used. SSL certificate will be added to the domain. Then your request will be transferred with the HTTPS protocol.
Sir, what is the certificate, sir? Generally, in projects, sometimes they are telling add that certificate.
Yes,
like
I will talk about that, madam. Once the API developments are completed, I will tell you what is that certificate and why we will use that certificate in the project.
Sir, what the difference between path variable and request body?
Just for now, remember the annotation name. So practically, we are going to see what is the difference between them.
Okay, sir.
So you may have a question. What is the difference between request param and path variable? What is the difference between REST template, web client, and FIAN client? All these things we will understand along with the examples.
Sure.
As of now, I'm just telling you the overview, what concepts we are going to use for developing the provider and consumer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, path variable and path param both are same, sir?
Yes, sir. Both are same, but annotation is path variable.
Okay.
We can call it as a path param. We can call it as a path variable. We can call it as a URL variable also. Multiple names are there, but to read that, the annotation that we are going to use is path variable annotation.
Sir, what type of logic consumer will contain? Like
Logic to send the HTTP request to the provider. Consumer means who is going to access the provider, right?
yes.
So that means you need to develop the logic. That logic represents creating HTTP request. Create a request, send the request, take the response, process the response. That logic will be available in the consumer. Okay, good. Let's get started with our API development, guys. Okay, so I'm going to create our first REST application, new Spring Boot project. So first REST application means what we are going to develop, provider or consumer? First, which one we need to develop, guys?
Provider.
Always we need to start the development from the provider side, because without provider you can't develop a consumer. First develop the provider and then develop the consumer, then check the consumer is able to connect with the provider or not. In the real time, are you going to develop both the provider and consumer, or you will develop only one? In the same project, provider and consumer will be available.
Depends on the requirement, sir.
Depends on the requirement. If we develop the provider, somebody will be consumer for your provider. If you are developing a consumer, somebody will be the provider for your application. So depends on the requirement. Sometimes we are going to develop the provider, sometimes we are going to develop the consumer in the project. So that means you should know both, how to develop a provider, how to develop a consumer also. Now I'm going to create our first REST API application, guys.
So one small request,
yes,
can we
sir.
use IntelliJ IDEA?
Anything is fine, sir. If you want IntelliJ, I can use that also. Which one you want, guys?
No, sir, no.
Sir, if you go for IntelliJ IDEA, the problem for me is, for every application I need to download and I need to extract and I need to import. So that is the problem in the IntelliJ. If you go for Spring Tool Suite IDE, directly I can create the projects from here. In the real time, you are not good. So I will tell you the problem. In the real time projects development, project creation is only one-time activity. Every day you will work in the same project. So creating one time means download the project, import the project, for next 2 months or 3 months, you will work on the same project. But in the training, every day I need to create a new project. So for that, going to the Spring Initializer website, create the project, download that project, import that project. Doing that every day is a hectic. So that is the reason in the trainings we are going to use STS. If you want IntelliJ also, I'm fine. Okay, let me show you this first example with the IntelliJ IDE. So I don't have any issue on that. Let me go to the website, which is start.spring.io. Okay, in the IntelliJ Community Edition, directly you cannot create the project. Okay, so let's go to start.spring.io website. I'm going to create my first REST API application. So I'm selecting Maven as a build tool, latest Spring Boot version 3.3.3. Group ID, I'm using in.ashok.it. My artifact ID, so I'm using 01 REST API. Spring Boot REST API. 01 Spring Boot REST API. So package name I can use as in.ashok.it. And packaging type jar format, because every Spring Boot application will execute from the main method. So I can use the packaging format as a jar. Java version I can use 17. So minimum Java version 17 if you are using Boot 3.x version. And dependencies, I'm selecting one dependency called web dependency. Another dependency I'm selecting, that is DevTools dependency. So to develop the first REST API, only I'm selecting web starter. So if you select the web starter, then it will support for web application development. It will support for REST API application development also. So I'm selecting the project build tool as Maven, language as Java, boot version 3.3.3, group ID in.ashok.it, and project artifact name and package name. Packaging type is jar, Java version 17. and dependencies I selected as web and I selected DevTools. Okay, click on generate. So with this my project will be generated and it will be downloaded as a zip file. So let me go to my downloads folder, and here my REST API project is downloaded. Let's extract this zip file here. Extract this zip file. 01 Spring Boot REST API project is available. Let me copy this project into my workspace folder. So this is the extra work we need to do every day. Okay, so let me go to our project. It is 45 SBMS. So workspace available. Keep that project here. 01 Spring Boot REST API. Now I need to import this project into my IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, let me close my Spring Toolsuite IDE. Let me open my IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, so in my system, IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition is available. So I'm opening my IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition. In that, I am going to import the project I have downloaded from Initializer website. So if you are working in the real time, project creation is only one-time activity, so that's not a big deal. But in the training, every day we need to create the project, so it will waste our time. Create the project, download it, import it. No need to do that those many times. Directly in the STS you can create the project. So with this, my IntelliJ IDEA is opened. I need to import my project. Okay, go to File, Import the project, or open the projects. Okay, so where the project is available, let me go to my classes. In that 45 SBMS, in that workspace, yes, REST API project, open that project. So trust this project, open in the same window. So now in this, my Spring Boot project is getting opened. So this is the 01 Spring Boot REST API. So you guys able to understand how I am importing that project into my IntelliJ IDEA. So the difference is, in the Spring Toolsuite, directly you can create the project. In the IntelliJ Community Edition, directly you cannot create the Spring Boot project. Yes. So with this, my project is opened. It is updating the dependencies which are required for this project. Now go to pom.xml. You can check it. In this project, what are the dependencies available? In the pom.xml, so Spring Boot parent version 3.3.3 is available, and web starter dependency we added, DevTools dependency we added. So when we add web starter, you can develop web applications, you can develop REST APIs, and it will provide Apache Tomcat as a default embedded container. It is providing Apache Tomcat as a default embedded container. And we got the start class also, Java application. In the base package, I got one start class also. It is the entry point for our boot application execution. And we got the properties file also. Application and properties file is available. Any configuration that you want to modify, you can configure in this properties file. Good. So currently there is no logic available, just a start class. Let us verify, is this project is getting started or not, and any problem is there. Just for testing purpose, I'm checking my application is getting started or not. I'm running this. So Tomcat server should start with the port number 8080. If application is getting started, then we are good. We can start developing the provider logic. So application is getting started. Let's verify this. Banner is printed. Boot application started. No profiles are available. So it is going with the default profile. Root web application context is created. That means IOC container started. Server is also started. Tomcat server default. Server we are getting. It is starting with the port number 8080. Okay, we are good. Let me stop it. Then once your application is getting started, our project is ready. Now I need to create the provider logic. That means I'm going to create the REST controller. So go here, new Java class. So I'm going to create one new Java class here. That Java class name, I'm going to give that class name as message REST controller, anything. Okay, you can create a new package also. in.ashok ID is available, new package. Okay, I'm creating the package name as dot controller. in.ashok.it controller package I created. Remember, when you are creating the packages, we need to follow base package naming convention. Excuse me, guys. So when we are creating the packages, we need to follow base package naming convention. In.ashok.it is base package. All the remaining packages also should start with the same name. So I'm creating controller. So controller, inside that controller, let me create one Java class. So I'm creating message REST controller. You can give any name. I'm giving the name as message REST controller. My class name I'm giving as message REST controller. So this is a normal Java class now. I want to represent this class as a REST controller. Okay, I want to represent this class as a REST controller. In order to represent this class as a REST controller, we are going to use one annotation called @REST controller annotation. We are going to use one annotation which is @REST controller annotation that will represent our Java class as a distributed component. It is going to represent our Java class as a distributed component. REST controller is a class level annotation. So if you go to REST controller annotation, you can see that it is the combination of controller plus response body. Can you see this one? Can you see this one? What is the meaning of REST controller? It is the combination of controller plus response body annotation. It is a combination of controller plus response body annotation. Okay. Now let me go for settings. Increase the font size for you. Appearance. Font size. Where is that? Theme is dark. Okay. Font size I want to increase. Zoom is fine. UI options. Where is the font size, guys?
Left side logo starting with
Font.
Yeah.
It is not increased. File settings, appearance, editor font. 35 I have given. Okay, but still it is not increased. No. Is my font is visible for all of you? Yes, fine. So with this, we are able to create one Java class. That Java class name I'm taking as a message REST controller. Is it clear now? Is my font visible?
Yes, sir. It's visual.
Is this font visible now? Yes. So we are taking one class with a name called message REST controller. As we discussed, when you want to develop a provider, the very first thing that we need to use is a REST controller. So inside this REST controller, you can write the methods, guys. So those methods we need to map to HTTP protocol methods. Let me write one method, public string get welcome message. Public string get welcome message. String message is equal to welcome to REST API. Welcome to REST API. I'm taking one message. Then I am going to return that message. That's it. Okay. So here I'm writing one method, get welcome message method. I'm writing that method is returning a string. So this is normal Java method. This is normal Java method. We need to map this method to HTTP protocol method. We should map this method to HTTP protocol method. For this, we will write one annotation, that is @get mapping annotation. @get mapping /welcome. @get mapping /welcome. So this is called one REST API. This is called as one REST API. So we are writing one Java class. That Java class we are representing as a REST controller. REST controller is a predefined annotation from the Spring Web module. REST controller annotation is equal to two annotations. One is a controller plus response body. Inside that REST controller, I'm writing one method called get welcome message method. That method returning a string. This string is a view name, or this string is a direct response to the client, guys. Whatever the string I am returning from my method, is that string is a view name or it is a direct response to the client?
Direct response to
It is a direct response to the client. Okay. And what is this @get mapping? What is this @get
We are
mapping?
sending HTTP
retrieve the
request.
data.
Yes. This method is mapped to HTTP get request with URL pattern /welcome. So whatever the REST controller method we are writing, that REST controller method is mapped to one get request by using get mapping with /welcome as a URL pattern. So that's it. Then we can start this application and we can see whether it is working or not. So if it is a simple get mapping method, we can send the request from the browser also. If it is a get request, we can send from the browser also, but recommended to use Postman in order to test our APIs are working as expected or not. Go to the start class and run this application. Okay, Spring Boot application execution always will start from the start class. So we are running this project from the start class. Project is getting started. Then I will open Postman tool in order to verify this application is working as expected or not. I'm going to use a Postman to verify this application is working as expected or not. So meanwhile, let me open my Postman tool. Yes, application is started with the port number 8080. It is using Tomcat as a embedded container. It is using Tomcat as an embedded container with the default port number 8080. Then my Postman tool is opened. So I want to send the request to this application and I want to see whether it is working or not. So simple method I have taken. So there is no path parameter, there is no query parameter, there is no request body also. Okay, very simple method I have taken, which is having one get request method. It is taking a get request and it is returning a direct response to the client. Go to the Postman. Now I want to send a get request, guys. So http localhost http /localhost 8080/URL pattern. The URL pattern is welcome. The URL pattern is welcome. So like this, I want to send a get request to my server. Okay. So this is my Postman tool. This is my Postman tool. So using this Postman tool, I want to send get request. So what type of request you want to send? Select it. To which URL you want to send the request? Select it. http localhost 8080/welcome. Currently headers, I'm not sending. Body, I'm not sending. No body available. When you are going for get request, body will not be available because get request is not to send the data. Get request is used to get the data. So that is the reason for get request, body will not be available. When you go for post request, then body will be available. Okay, but for the get request, body will not be available. Now see, currently there is no response available. Click on send. Click on send. Yes, now I got the response body. Welcome to REST API. And what is the response status code? 200. So whatever the get request I'm sending to the server, it processed my request successfully and it sent a success response to me. So I'm getting the status 200 with OK. That means my request processed successfully by the server. Provider application is processing the HTTP GET request successfully. That is the meaning of this 200. So when we send a GET request, I'm not sending any headers, but some default headers are going. These are the some default headers, some postman token, host, agent, accept, like this. Some default headers are going, but body is not available. And I'm sending a request. So that means it is sending one HTTP GET request to the server. Localhost colon 8080 with a /welcome. It has given me some response body. Welcome to REST API is the response body I am getting with the status code 200 I am getting. But if you see in my method, am I sending the status code as a 200 or it is generated by the Spring Boot? What my method is returning here, guys? Come on.
It is only returning message.
We are only returning the message. So here, when you see the response, only message is coming, status code is also coming.
The status code.
And how that status code is coming as a response? Who is sending that status code?
Get mapping annotation.
In the background, dispatcher servlet is preparing the response along with the status code. So controller method is giving the direct response. Controller method is giving the direct response. Whatever the response is given by the controller, that response is converted into this format, guys. HTTP response format is constructed. HTTP status code, HTTP status message, what is metadata, what is business data. My controller method is just returning one string. My controller method is just returning one string. But in the background, that the dispatcher servlet converted our controller returned response into HTTP response object, and it sent that HTTP response object to the client. Who is a client now? Postman is acting as a client for the REST API. Our REST API is developed, it is working, and there is REST controller. In that there is one method which is mapped to GET request. That GET request method simply returning one string. String message is equal to welcome to Ashokite. Return that message. So when you send that GET request to the REST API from the Postman, Postman is acting as a consumer now. Postman is acting as a consumer. Postman is sending HTTP request to the provider. Provider processed that request. Provider sent the response. Response body coming. Response headers are coming. And response status code is also coming. So response body payload. Welcome to REST API message is coming. Okay. Then body headers. You see, these are the response headers we are getting. So response structure, if you see, response line is available, response headers available, response body is available. Who is sending this? Dispatcher servlet prepared this HTTP response object and sending that response object to the consumer. Who is a consumer? Postman is acting as a consumer. In future, we will develop Java based consumer. Currently, our consumer is not available. That's why we are using Postman as a consumer. By using that Postman, we are sending HTTP request to the provider. Then provider is giving HTTP response to us. Then Postman is sending a request. Then provider is giving the response. What is coming in the response? Response line, which contains the status code, status message. Response headers are coming. Response headers when that request is sent. Okay. So how much time the session will be available? What is the connection status? What is the response you got? Content type. So what is the response we got from the provider? Plain text we got as a response, not the JSON. Currently JSON is not available. We are getting one string message. This string message is a text message. So when you see the response header, it is telling that boss, provider has given the content type as a plain text. In that plain text, 24 characters available. That is called metadata. Data about the data is called metadata. So consumer is sending a request to the provider. Get request to this URL. As a consumer, by using Postman, I am sending a request, but I'm not sending any headers. I'm not sending any body. Plain get request I am sending. Get URL. That's it. I'm sending a request. Now I'm getting response. What is there in the response? Response structure. What is there in that response structure? HTTP status code plus the status message. 200 okay. That means successfully processed. And I'm getting response headers, metadata. What is there? What you got as a response, which data you got as a response, how many characters available in that response, what is the response format, and what is the actual response. So the status code I'm getting as 200, status message I'm getting as okay. Then metadata, they are telling that they are giving the plain data as a response. Currently, say string message I'm returning, which is a plain text. Then 24 characters available in that text. What is that text? Body, response body I got. Are you able to understand what is REST controller and how to test the REST controller? What is REST controller and how to test the REST controller? Are you guys able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Now here we can develop one more method also, guys. This time I will develop a method with the different return type. This time I will develop my method with the different return type. Public response entity, public response entity of string, get greet message. The first method, if you see in the first method, I have taken string as a response, direct response. When you take string as a response, direct string message you are returning. You are not deciding the response status code. Dispatcher servlet deciding the status code. But now my requirement is I don't want dispatcher servlet to decide my status code. For my method, when my method is executed, I want to send the response along with my own status code. Then you can take response entity as a return type of the method. By using this response entity, you can tell what data you want to send in the response body, what status code you want to send in the response. Okay, I'm taking public response entity get greet message. So what is the message I want to send in the response? So the message that I want to send in the response, that is, I'm taking string message is equal to good morning. I'm giving the message as good morning. Okay, so I want to send this response in the form of response entity object. So let us create that object, return new response entity, return new response entity of message body data http status dot okay, http status dot okay. So when I say http status dot okay, okay means it is 200. So if you want to send your own status code, if you want to construct the HTTP response according to your requirement, then you can take response entity as a return type. I don't want to decide the status code. Let Spring Boot decide the status code for my response. Then you can take the direct response return type. You can return the response. Whatever the response you are returning, for that, if the request is executed, if this method is executed successfully, they will send 200 as a status code. Suppose I don't want them to decide my status code. I want to decide the status code for my method. Then I will take response entity as a return type. So return new response entity of message comma status code. So response entity constructor is taking body comma status. So here what we are trying to do, we are calling new response entity, which is taking T response body what you want to send, and what is the status code you want to send. So if you want to construct your own HTTP response for your REST API method, then you can use response entity object as a return type of your method. So that is what I am doing in the second method. You can do, it's optional guys, it's optional. If you don't want to decide the status code, then dispatcher servlet will decide the status code for your method. If you don't want dispatcher servlet to decide the status code, then you decide the status code for your method by taking response entity as a return type. So I'm taking response entity of return type and creating a variable with the actual message I want to send in the response. Return new response entity message comma status dot OK. So let me map this method to get request at the rate get mapping. So this one I will map to /greet. So above method I map it to /welcome. This method I am mapping to /greet. So two get request methods available. Both are mapped to different URL patterns. These are two get request methods available. Both are mapped to two different URL patterns. Are you guys able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? There are two get request methods available. One is /welcome. Another one is /greet. /welcome method returning direct string. /greet method is returning response entity. Both are get request methods only. But the difference, in the first method, they will decide the status code. In the second method, I am deciding the status code. Only that is the difference part. That is the difference part. Are you guys able to understand the two methods I have created now?
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between the first method and second method? Functionality wise, any difference is there?
No, sir.
Functionality wise, any difference is there between the first method and second method?
No.
Functionality wise, there is no difference between the first method and second method. Then what is the difference between first method and second method? In the first method, I'm taking direct string as a response. Okay. What about the status code? Dispatcher servlet will decide the status code for that method. But in the second method, I'm taking response entity as a return type. So what is the purpose of response entity?
Programmer will decide the
body and status code for the method. Okay. Now let me start this application. There is one REST controller available. In that REST controller, there are two methods available. Both are get request methods only. One method is mapped to /welcome URL pattern. Another method is mapped to /greet URL pattern. One method is mapped to welcome URL pattern. Another method is mapped to greet URL pattern. Welcome and greet. Okay, let me check it. Is it working or not? Yes. Tomcat server started with the port number 8080. Now go to Postman, get welcome. Yes, I'm getting the response. Welcome to REST API. Status code I'm getting as a 200. Now let me send another get request /greet. Click on /greet URL send request. Now I am getting good morning as a response with the status code 200. Both are same. One is welcome request, another one is greet. So when I send the request with the /welcome, get request /welcome, I got the response, welcome to REST API, status code is 200, body, headers also available. Text, plain text we are getting as a response. Response content type, that means provider is giving plain text as a response to the consumer. Provider is giving plain text as a response to the consumer. Now similarly, let's go for greet, send the request. Now we got the response. This time also plain text we are getting as a response, but content length is only 12 characters. And body you can see response body, response headers, response status code. So we are able to send greet request, get greet, we got the greet message. Get welcome, we got the welcome message. So like this we can use the Postman to test our REST API. So can we consider Postman is acting as a consumer now. Can we consider that Postman is acting as a consumer now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, Postman is acting as a consumer now. Okay, so we are sending a simple get method message, string message we are returning. For example, my method don't want to return just a string, guys. My method want to return one user data. My method want to return one book data, employee data, ticket data. So let me create one more REST controller in the same project. Okay, so this time I'm going to create one new Java class. I'm going to take the class with a name called one book class. One book binding class I'm taking. Book class I'm taking. In this book class, I will take private integer book ID, private string book name, private double book price. Okay, so 3 variables I have taken. Let me generate setters and getters for these variables. Generate both getters and setters for these variables. Okay, only for one variable. For all the variables, generate getters and setters for all the variables. Click on OK. So for all these variables, setter methods and getter methods are generated. If you want, you can generate a toString also. Generate toString method also to print the content of the object. Okay. So with this, our Java class is ready. I'm taking one book class. In this class, I'm taking 3 variables: book ID, book name, book price. You can generate a constructor. Generate one constructor also we can generate. Constructor with variables you can generate. Parameterized constructor and default constructor also you can write it. It's up to you. Instead of doing all these things, simply we can use the Lombok also. So one zero param constructor is available, one parameterized constructor available, setter getter methods available, toString method is also available. That's fine. So simple. I have taken one Java class with a name called book. Book class I have taken. Now let me create one REST controller, new Java class, book REST controller. I'm taking a class with a name called book REST controller. Another REST controller. Represent this class as a REST controller. For this, we are using again annotation called REST controller. Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of REST controller? Can anyone tell me
To
what is
create
the
the
purpose
REST
of REST
API
controller?
application.
To represent our Java class as a
Distributed
Yes,
REST
it is
API.
used to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean, and it will represent our Java class as a distributed component also. It is representing our Java class as a distributed component. Now, inside this book REST controller, I will write one method, public response entity. Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of response entity? Can you tell me what is the purpose of response entity?
We decide the HTTP.
Developer need to customize the response body and the status code.
Yes, developer want to customize the response body and status code. Now I am taking book as a response return type. Okay, get book. I'm writing one method, get book. Create one book object. Book B is equal to new book. So there is a parameter constructor available, 101 Java. The price is some 1250, something like this. I created one book object. Now return the response. Return new response entity of B comma HTTP status dot OK. OK means 200, guys. HTTP status dot OK. Import this HTTP status dot OK. OK means 200 status code it is going to return. Now let us map this method to the get request. Let us map this method to the get request by using one annotation @get mapping. The URL is /book. Are you able to understand book REST controller method that I have created now? Are you guys able to understand? Book REST controller method I have created now.
Yes, sir.
What
Yes,
this
sir.
method is returning now, guys? Book REST controller method. What this method is returning now?
Book class object.
It is returning book class object. So in the provider application, we are returning book object. Is it recommended to return the object to the consumer? Consumer will understand the Java object, or consumer cannot understand the Java object?
Cannot understand.
Because consumer will be developed by using only Java, or consumer can be developed by using any other technology also.
Any other technology.
Consumer will be developed with only, our provider is Java. We are developing a REST controller with the Java. So consumer will be developed by using any other technology. So I'm returning object as a return type. I'm returning response entity book object with the status as okay. Now let me run the application and let me check it. What is going to happen? So the URL pattern is a /book, guys. The get mapping, the URL pattern I'm giving as /book. Message REST controller having /welcome/greet. Book REST controller is having get mapping /book. Message REST controller methods are returning string as a response. String is nothing but plain text only. But book REST controller returning book object as a response. Response entity book with the status code as okay, that means 200. Go to postman /greet. We are getting the greet message, which is a plain text. Then /welcome. We are getting welcome message as a plain text. Welcome message as a plain text. Now let's understand. I'm sending a get request with the /book. Send that get request to the /book. What we are getting as a response?
JSON data.
We are getting plain text as a response. We are getting object as a response. Or we are getting JSON as a response.
JSON as a response.
We are getting JSON as a response. Go to the response headers. What is the content type? What is the response we got from the provider?
Application/JSON.
JSON. But as a programmer, am I writing the logic to convert this Java object to JSON, or I am not writing the logic to convert Java object to JSON?
Not writing.
Then how that object is converted to JSON?
Dispatcher solver.
Dispatches
Spring
are
Boot is taking care of that, because converting the Java object to JSON is only my project requirement, or it is a universal requirement?
Universal.
universal.
My method is returning the object, but object is not coming as a response to the client, because client may not be a Java application. Client may be a .NET, client may be Python, client may be Postman. So that's why whatever the object we are returning from the method, that object is not coming as a response to the client. So as a programmer, I am returning the object from the method, but the Spring Boot, before sending that response to the client, it converted that object into JSON. It sent that JSON as a response to the consumer. So my method is returning object, but object is not coming as a response. Object is converted to JSON. That JSON came as a response to the client. Are you guys clear with this method?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now let's take 10 minutes break, guys. 10 minutes break. We will meet again at 9:45. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
So we are writing new response entity, right? In that line, are we passing parameters to the constructor?
Yes, this is a constructor. First parameter is what is the body you want to send, response body, and second parameter, what is the status code you want to send.
Yeah, and also, sir, one more thing. If we run application in a local host, we require internet, right?
No. Currently, for the local host, internet is not required. If you want to deploy the server, then internet is required. I will tell you when internet is required for.
Okay, sir. We are having status code, right? We are sending it manually now.
Correct.
So what if the connection is interrupted or other things?
I will tell you multiple status codes available. How to send multiple status code, we'll understand. After the break, we will connect.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Let's meet at 9:45. 10 minutes break. So, guys, we developed one REST controller called Book REST controller. In the Book REST controller, I have taken one method called getBook method, which is having a get mapping of book. So my method is returning response body comma status code. The response body we are returning is a object. Okay, but whenever we run this application and when we send get request to this application, are we getting object as a response or we are getting JSON data as a response?
JSON data is a
JSON
response.
data.
Are we getting object as a response or we are getting JSON data as a response? We are
JSON
getting
data.
JSON data as a response. Now the question is, who is converting that object data to JSON data? Who converted that object data to JSON data, guys? Programmer is
Framework.
converting that or our framework is converting that?
Our framework.
Programmer is converting that object to JSON or our framework is converting that object to JSON?
Framework.
Framework is converting object to the JSON. Why the framework is converting from object to JSON? Why not programmer?
Universal requirement.
Yes, so because so many people are developing the REST APIs by using Spring Boot, it is a universal requirement to convert the object to JSON, JSON to object. So you no need to write the logic of Jackson API to convert your object into JSON. Your REST controller method is returning book object. Your REST controller method is returning book object. That object we are sending along with the status code as OK. So here dispatcher servlet converted this object into JSON data by using Jackson API. That means in the Spring Boot internally Jackson API will be used to convert your response object into response JSON and send that JSON data to the client in the response body. Okay, we are sending one object as a response, so that's why that object is converted to JSON. That JSON data is coming as a response to the client. Similarly, I want to send a list of objects as a response. So get books, multiple books I want to get from the server. So let me write one more method in the same REST controller, books method. Book means one book object. Books means multiple book objects I want to send as a collection of objects I want to send. So when I'm sending collection of objects, so client will receive the collection of objects or clients will receive the JSON array. Our one object will be converted to JSON. When we are returning one book object, it is converted to JSON, that the JSON sent to the client. If you are sending list of objects, then your objects will be converted to JSON array, that the JSON array will be sent to the client. Okay, so let me write this method now. Public, I'm taking response entity, list of books. This time I'm taking my return type as list of books. Java.util list of books. Guys, so don't import AWT package book object. You need to import user defined book object.
Sir, your ID is not visible to
ID
us.
is not visible.
Not visible, huh? Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's
sir.
visible.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
So I'm
Yes,
trying
sir.
to write one more method, that is public response entity. Public response entity class I'm taking. Return type I'm taking list, Java util list I'm taking, with book return type I'm taking. So I'm writing one method called get books method. It is responsible to return list of book objects. Okay, so let me create multiple book objects and let me convert them into one collection. Book B1, book B2 and B3. B1, B2, B3. So like this I'm taking 3 book objects. I want to send them as a collection. 102, 103, Java, Python, DevOps. Okay, so 1250, 2250, 3250, something like this. I'm taking 3 book objects. Now 3 book objects I want to add to a list. So to add them to the list, I'm taking one method, arrays dot as list method, b1 comma b2 comma b3. 3 objects will be converted to one list object here. Arrays dot as list b1 b2 b3. Let me store that into a variable. So I got the books list here. Let me return this books list by using response entity. Return new response entity of books list, comma, http status dot OK. http status dot OK. OK means 200. So this is the method. So my first method returning single book object, my second method returning list of book objects. Let me map this also to a URL pattern. So I'm taking get mapping slash books. I'm taking get mapping slash books URL pattern. I'm taking. So are you guys able to understand the difference between the first method and the second method now? Both
Yes,
are
sir.
get request methods only. Both are get request methods only. But the first method is returning single book object. The first method is returning single book object. The second method is returning multiple books in the collection format. So my method is returning object, but provider will not return the object to the consumer. So whatever the object is returned by the method, that object will be converted to JSON, that JSON will be sent to the client. Who is converting our objects to the JSON? That will be taken care by our Spring Boot by using Jackson API. So as a programmer, you no need to write the logic. But do you know? So because I have explained Jackson API before going to start the REST API development. Now, do you know what logic is executing in the background? When I send this get request, how this JSON is coming? Here method is returning object. How this object is converted to this JSON? Do you know what is the logic which is executing in the background? That means internal part. Internally, the Spring Boot is using Jackson API to convert your Java object into JSON, object mapper, write value. What is happening in the background that we know. Actually, we no need to write that logic because Spring Boot will take care of converting the object into JSON by using Jackson API. How that object will be converted to JSON, how the logic will be executed, what code is getting executed in the background, that code we know. So that is the reason before developing the REST API, first I have explained you that Jackson logic. First I have explained you that Jackson logic. Are you able to understand this?
Sir, have you imported the Jackson?
No need to, sir. We are not writing single line of code related to Jackson.
Okay.
Whenever we add the web starter, automatically Jackson API will be, Jackson dependency will be added. We are not writing any line of code related to Jackson. Even if you see in the pom.xml also, I am not adding the Jackson dependency because whenever you add a web starter, then Jackson dependency will come by default. Jackson is a part of web starter. Okay. If you check the project Maven dependencies, Jackson will be available. External libraries, Maven downloaded the libraries, right? Jackson library will be downloaded by the Maven. So if you select web starter, then it will take care of that Jackson. Here you see Jackson dependency available. Core Jackson, Jackson data bind, Jackson data type, Jackson dependencies are available. How come the Jackson dependencies are available in the build path? Did I add the Jackson dependency or Maven is downloading the Jackson dependency?
Maven downloaded.
Why? Because when you add a web starter, Jackson dependency will come by default, and by using that Jackson dependency, it is converting our Java object to JSON. We are not writing the logic to convert the object to JSON. My method is returning object only, but that object converted to JSON, that JSON data sent as a response to the client. Converting the Java to JSON, JSON to Java will be taken care by our Spring Boot in the REST API. As a programmer, you no need to write that logic, but we know how to work with that. So prerequisites, Jackson logic is required, right? So we know what is happening in the background. We know the internally how the Spring Boot is converting object to JSON, JSON to object. But as a programmer, you no need to write that logic manually. Boot will take care of that logic. Now, let's run this application. Book REST controller is available. In this, there is one method called getBook method. Get mapping book is available, which is going to return single book object. And there is another get mapping method, books method is available, which will return list of book objects. Okay, it is getting started. It started, the banner is printed on the console. Application started with the Tomcat server port number 8080. Clear the console. Go to Postman. If I send a request with the get request with the /book, now I am getting book object in the JSON format. Whatever the book object my method is returning, that object is converted to JSON and we got that JSON. Now tell me, who converted that object into JSON format? Who converted that Java object into JSON format, guys?
Spring Boot.
Spring Boot converted. How Spring Boot will convert Java object to JSON? By using Jackson.
Jackson.
What is the logic will execute in the background? Do you know internals also?
Yes, sir. Object map.
Object mapper, write value method will be executed. Now do you understand why we learned Jackson API before coming to REST API development?
Yes, sir.
Suppose if you don't know Jackson API, will you understand how this object is converted to JSON? No. So now you know Jackson API. That's why easily you are able to understand, okay, this method is returning object. That object is converted to JSON. That means in the background, Spring Boot is using Jackson API. In the Jackson API, object mapper class is available. In the object mapper, write value method is available to convert the object to JSON. Now I no need to talk much about that JSON logic because already we know what is the JSON, how to convert object to JSON, JSON to object. Similarly, let me send the request to the books URL pattern. What is the return type? List of book objects it is returning. Okay, the book method is returning only one book object, so the JSON data represented one book object. Now if I send the get request with the books, okay, send. Now see the response. What is the response we are getting?
Multiple
this is
books.
array.
Multiple books.
This is the JSON array. We are getting the data in the form of one array. So book 1, book 2, book 3. So all three book objects are converted to JSON array. So list of books we are returning, the list of book objects converted to one JSON array. In that JSON array, 3 book records available. So 101 book, 102 book, 103 book. So all the 3 books are represented in the form of JSON array. So this is the structure to represent the JSON array. In that JSON array, this is one book, this is one book, this is one book. So total there are 3 elements available in the array. Every element is representing one book record. Fine. I hope you understood how to develop a REST controller and how to write the methods. And if you take object as a return type, that object will be converted to JSON. If you take the string as a return type, that string will be represented as a plain text. So depends on the requirement. Sometimes we will take object as a response. Sometimes we will take string as a response. Sometimes we will take a collection of objects as a response. It's completely depends on our project requirement, whether to take string as a response, whether to take object as a response, whether to take collection of objects as a response. It depends on the requirement. But you got the basic idea how we are able to develop a REST API. You got the idea how we are able to develop the REST API?
Yes, sir.
Right. And when we are developing the REST API methods, right? So it's better to give value is equal to welcome, comma, produces. Produces is equal to plain text, text/plain. So it is always recommended to tell that what we are producing from our method. So this is a provider application. This is a provider application providing the services to other applications, B2B services. So it's better to, if you don't specify produces also, no problem. It is returning the plain data only. But it is always recommended to specify produces. What is the meaning of produces? Produces is used to represent that in which format our method providing response to the consumer. This is optional. It is just for readability, guys. It is just for readability. We are specifying produces is equal to text slash plain. So what is the meaning of produces is equal to text slash plain? What is the meaning of that? This method is providing plain text as a response to the consumer. Whoever is going to access this method, they are going to receive plain text as a response. Similarly, greet method is available, which is also returning a string. So let me specify value is equal to slash greet, comma, produces is equal to text slash plain. What is the meaning of text slash plain? This method is producing response in the plain text format. Go to book rest controller. What this method is providing as a response to the client, guys?
JSON data.
What this method is providing as a response to the client? This
JSON.
method is
JSON data.
providing JSON data. So what we need to specify, value is equal to slash book, comma, produces is equal to application slash JSON. Application slash JSON. I'm representing that this method is producing the data in the JSON format. I'm representing that this method is providing the data in the JSON format. Produces is equal to application slash JSON. Similarly, another method. So value is equal to, value means the URL pattern, comma, this method is producing JSON data, which is application slash JSON. This is optional, but it is highly recommended to improve the readability of our application. So what data we are producing from our method. So when someone look at this method, easily they can understand, okay, this method is producing JSON. Method is returning object, that object will be converted to JSON, that JSON data will be sent as a response to the client. JSON data will be sent as a response to the client. Are you guys able to follow this?
So since it is for readability, that is why it is representing there is no usages like that.
No. No usage means this method we are not calling anywhere. That is the meaning of no usage. This is IDE related functionality.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever the method we are writing, so it is saying that boss, you created one method, but you have not called this method anywhere in the application. So that's why it is saying no usages. This method is not called anywhere. Actually, we don't call this method in our application. These methods will be called whenever the request comes. These methods will be executed whenever HTTP request comes to our application. We no need to call these methods.
So who is called this method? Dispatchers.
Sorry?
This
Your
method.
voice is breaking.
Who is called this method, sir?
Dispatcher servlet, sir. Whenever we send a request to this application, dispatcher servlet will take the request. It will talk to handler mapper. Handler mapper will tell which controller is responsible to handle. Then handler mapper will give controller data to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet is going to call this method. This method will return the direct response. There is no view resolver. Directly it will send the response back to the client. Now let's understand how this request and response will be executed. So we know Spring MVC architecture, right? So dispatcher servlet will be available in our application. So what is the role of dispatcher servlet in our application, guys? We are developing the project by using Spring Web MVC.
Take a response
In the Spring Web
and give the
MVC, dispatcher servlet is available. What is a dispatcher servlet?
It acts as a front controller to our application.
It acts as a front controller for our application. Then whenever the request comes to dispatcher servlet, then what the dispatcher servlet will do? It will talk to handler mapper. Then after talking to the handler mapper, it will identify which REST controller is going to handle this request. Okay. So now if you observe, first the client request will come to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will talk to handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify which REST controller is going to handle this request. Give the information to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will call the REST controller method. REST controller method will return direct response to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will return the response to the client. There is no concept of view resolver. There is no concept of view component. When that view resolver, view component comes into picture, when that view resolver, view component comes into picture, guys?
When we want to develop the web application,
Whenever you are
We
developing
see
a web application, whenever you are developing a web application with the UI pages, then only that view resolver, view component comes into picture. But currently in this project, there is no view resolver, there is no view pages, because it is a pure REST API, pure backend application. You send HTTP request, it will give you HTTP response. So whenever the request comes, now currently we are using Postman. So can I say Postman is playing the role of consumer now?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Can I say Postman
Yes,
is
we can
playing
call
the
it.
role of consumer? Why we are using the Postman today? What is the reason of this Postman? Why we are using Postman today?
Testing
It's
API.
advanced
Why we are using Postman today, guys?
to test our
Testing
API.
API.
To test our REST API. Because currently we are developing only provider. So to test our provider, we are using Postman. Tomorrow, we will develop another Java application which will act as a consumer. So today we are developing the provider. So from the Postman, we are sending the request to the provider. So Postman request will go to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will give the request to the handler mapper. Handler mapper is going to identify. Handler mapper is going to identify who is going to handle this request. It will identify the REST controller which is going to handle this request. Then handler mapper will give the REST controller details to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will go and call that REST controller. The REST controller will execute the logic. REST controller will return the response back to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will send that response back to the client directly. There is no view resolver, there is no view, there is no rendering, nothing is required because it is a B2B application. It is a B2B application. Are you clear with my point?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to understand? Two REST controllers I have created. One is a message REST controller. Here I am taking one get method which is returning direct string. And I have taken another get method which is returning response entity. Can you tell me what is the purpose of response entity in the REST API development? Can you tell me what is the purpose of response entity in the REST
Developer is
API development?
responsible to return the HTTP.
To customize the response body and
Yes,
HTTP
it
status.
is used to customize the response. It is used to customize the response. That means you want to send which status code you want to send as a response to the client, that you can customize by using response entity. If you don't use response entity, then who will decide the status code for your response? Dispatcher servlet will decide the status code. Now, book REST controller. So in this application, I have created two REST controllers. Like this, can I create multiple REST controllers in the application?
Yes, sir.
Like this, can I take multiple REST controllers for this application? Yes, in one application, we can have multiple REST controllers also. In one application, we can have multiple REST controllers also. So this is one method which is taking /book, which is returning one book object, and /books available, which is returning list of books. My method is returning object, but object is going to the consumer. Object is not going to the consumer. My method is returning object, but object is going to the consumer. Object is not going to the consumer.
Not going to consumer.
Object is not going to the consumer. Then what is going to the consumer?
JSON
data.
JSON data. Who is converting your object to the JSON?
Spring Boot application.
Spring Boot is converting Java object to JSON, sending the JSON as a response to the client. Why Spring Boot is converting object to JSON and why it is sending JSON to the client as a response? Why not
Because it
object?
internally consisting of Jackson.
Yeah, Spring Boot internally contains Jackson API. Using that Jackson API, it is converting object. But my question is, why it is converting object? I'm not giving any information to the Spring Boot to convert my object to JSON. So why
Client is
Spring
not
Boot is
understanding.
taking that object and converting to JSON? Why it is sending JSON to the client as a response?
Universal.
Client
It
is
goes
not.
like client to client.
To
To communicate the
achieve
distributed application,
interoperability.
JSON format
Why it
is
is
independent.
converting object to JSON, guys? To achieve interoperability. What is that interoperability? What is the meaning of interoperability?
Converting object to JSON.
Platform independent and
Why
technology
it is
independent.
so? It is converting. I am returning object. I'm okay. I'm returning object. My object is converted to JSON. JSON data going to the client as a response. But the question is, why Spring Boot is taking that decision without any information from the programmer?
Because of
language and
interoperability.
platform
Because
independence.
Because of
different
interoperability
languages.
means
Of the language
independent
we
of
have to communicate.
Spring Boot is matured. Spring Boot is understanding that this person is developing REST API. REST API means distributed application. So this is a REST controller. For this REST controller, request can come from any type of application. Request may come from the Python application, may come from the Angular application, may come from the React application, may come from the .NET application. Request may come from the Postman. We don't know who is going to send the request. So that is the reason if I send object, this Java object to them, they cannot understand, because consumer can be developed by using any technology. The request can come to the provider from any technology based application. So we need to be interoperable. Whatever the data, whatever the response I am sending to the client should understand my response. That's why let me convert into JSON. Let me send the JSON as a response to the client. JSON is universal. Everybody can understand. Every programming language can understand the JSON. JSON is platform independent. JSON is language independent. So that's why without programmer information also, the programmer is not informing to the Spring Boot. But still, that Spring Boot is converting the objects to the JSON, sending JSON as a response to achieve interoperability. So that means any consumer can access this application. Consumer can be developed by using any technology. They can access this application. So to provide the distributed communication, to provide the interoperability, by default, Spring Boot is converting our Java objects to the JSON and sending that JSON data to the client as a response. How it is converting? In the background, this Spring Boot is using Jackson API object mapper class to convert your Java object to JSON and sending that JSON data to the client as a response. Client will receive that JSON, client will understand the JSON, because JSON is universal format. You understand why Spring Boot is converted to JSON, even though we are not writing any code for that?
Sir, is JSON is default, or if you want
default, sir. JSON is a default here.
What about if you want to see them with JSON?
You need to write your own logic there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So are you clear with my point? How to develop a REST API? How to return one object as a response? Currently here, the objects are hard-coded. Can we take the same data from the database also by using data JPA? Can we read this book's data from the database? Find by ID, find all method.
Yes,
Can
sir.
we take the data from the database table also?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Currently, I am hard coding the data. I'm returning the hard coded object data. So in future, what we will do? Instead of creating the objects like this, we will integrate our REST API with the data JPA. Then data JPA will communicate with the database, will fetch the data. That data we will send as a response to the client in the JSON format. And what is the purpose of this value? What is the meaning of get mapping, value, and produces? What is the value here?
This is for readability purpose.
What is the meaning of a value here, guys?
Value is to declare the URL we are
URL pattern.
It is to form the URL pattern, unique URL pattern.
To map our method with URL pattern.
Value represents the URL pattern, and what is produces representing here? What is the meaning of a produces?
Type of
Type of
response
data we are
here
sending.
Which type
it
of
will
data
return
is
the
written by
boot
Data
the
object
we
data
get
in
from
the
the
form of
application.
JSON
Producers will
format.
represent what type of data we are sending as a response from the provider to consumer. Value will represent what is the URL pattern of the method. Producers will represent what type of data we are sending from provider to consumer. Okay, next one. When we are developing REST API with the GET request method, guys, what is the meaning of GET request? What is the meaning of GET request? Can you tell me?
To get the
What is
data
the
from
meaning
the
of GET
server.
To
request?
get the data from the application.
Get the data from the server. So we are talking about HTTP GET request here. So today, whatever the methods we have developed, all these methods are mapped to HTTP GET request. Okay, what is the purpose of GET request? GET request is used to get the data from the server, or we can say GET request is used to get the data from the provider. GET request is used to get the data from the server, or it is used to get the data from the provider. And as GET request is used to get the data, GET request will not contain any request body. So initially we discussed about the request structure, right? So in this request structure, GET request will not contain this request body. This is not available for the GET request. First of all, what is the purpose of request body, guys? What is the purpose of request body?
To modify the data.
What is the purpose of request body?
To send the payload to the server.
And the
Yes.
business data.
Request body is used to send the payload to the server. Request body is used to send payload to the server. So GET request will send the payload, or GET request will get the payload. GET request to send the payload or to get the payload?
Get the payload.
Send the payload.
Get the payload. That's why request body is not available for the GET request. So GET request is meant for getting the data, not to send the data. So that is the reason for the HTTP GET request, this request body concept will not be available. That is what I'm talking about. HTTP GET request. GET request is used to get the data from the server. GET request will not contain request body. Okay. So when you want to send a GET request, simply you will specify get http://ashokit.in/courses. Okay. So if you send a GET request to this URL, then what will happen? It will give you all the courses which are available in the Ashokite website. Am I sending any data, or I am getting the data? Am I sending the data, or am I getting the data?
Getting the data.
Getting the data.
Getting the
Which
data.
body is required, or body is not required?
Body is not required.
Body is not required. Request body is not required. GET request is not for sending the data, guys. GET request is used to get the data. That's why for HTTP GET request, body will not be available. For HTTP GET request, body will not be available. GET request is used to get the data from the server. GET request will not contain request body. This is the URL. Suppose, for example, when I am sending a GET request from the client application to provider application, I want to send one GET request from client application to provider application. I want to send some data also. For example, I am getting all the courses. Suppose I don't want to get all the courses. I want to get particular course from the REST API. Then what we can do? If you want to send the data to the provider using GET request, then the only option you have to send the data in the URL, because GET request there is no body. I am a consumer, you are a provider. I want to send the request to you along with some data. Body I can't use because it is a GET request. GET means getting. But what I want to get, I want to tell you that. So hey, give me Spring Boot course details. Hey, give me Java book details. Hey, give me employee details whose ID is 101. Like this, I want to get some particular data, not all. Sometimes I want to get all the data. Sometimes I want to get only particular data from the REST API. So then if we want to send the data in the GET request, then we need to use below two options, guys. One is query parameters, another one is path parameters. If we want to send data to server, using GET request, then we need to use query parameters and path parameters. That means by using query parameters, by using path parameters, we can send the data to server in the URL because there is no body. Now, for example, you are using YouTube. Okay, we all are using YouTube, right? Let's go to YouTube and let's do some testing on the YouTube now. Okay, so in the YouTube there are so many videos are available, guys. In the YouTube there are so many videos are available. I want to play particular video which is available in the YouTube. Okay, so this is YouTube URL, youtube.com Ashok IT. Okay, when I click on this video, what will happen, guys? So when I click on this video, can you see the URL of the YouTube? When I click on this URL, can you see? When I click on this video, can you see what happened in the YouTube? Can I take this URL now? Let me show you this URL. Clicking on the video means you are sending a GET request. So when I send that GET request, what happened? youtube.com watch V is equal to some ID. That means I want to watch this video. This is the ID of that video. Suppose when I click on another video, for example, if I click on one more video to watch, then again my URL got changed. So now you see this one, again watch V is equal to video ID. So here in the YouTube there are so many videos are available. So when you click particular video to watch, then YouTube front-end application will send that video ID to the backend application in the URL. So that is a query parameter. So when we are sending a GET request to the provider, or when you are sending a GET request to the server, we can't send the data in the request body because for the GET request, body is not available. Then out of 1,000 videos, how to get the particular video to watch? That video ID we need to send to the server. So how to send the data from consumer to provider in the GET request? By using URL. So in the URL, you can send the data as a query parameter or as a path parameter. So that is what we are talking about. So there is a GET request available. We are developing the REST API. And in that REST API, we are having GET request. What is the purpose of the GET request? GET request is used to get the data from the server, or it is used to get the data from the provider. GET request will not contain the request body. Then how consumer can get particular data from the server? Consumer should send some data to the provider in the GET request. Then we have to send by using URL only. So you can send some data to the server in the URL. How to send the data to server in the URL? We have two options. What are those two options? One is query parameters option is available, and the second one is path parameters option is available. So what is the meaning of query parameter? This is YouTube example. If you see YouTube example 1. So when you go to the YouTube front-end application, YouTube back-end application is available. So when you click on particular video to watch, then YouTube is preparing the URL like this, and it is sending the request to the YouTube backend REST API. Okay, how it is sending that particular video information? By using V is equal to video ID. Here key value. So if you are sending any data to the server like this, this is called query parameter. This is called as a query parameter. So what is the meaning of query parameters? Query parameters are used to send the data from client to server in the URL as a key value format. Okay, so what is the meaning of query? Suppose for example, if you see, this is one example for query parameter. Now if you go to our Ashok IT website, if you go to Ashok IT website, ashokit.in, so there are multiple courses available. There are multiple courses available. Courses offering Java full stack development. Courses offering is available here. If I click on view more, that course name is going in the URL. This is a path parameter. Without key, if you are sending the data to the server, then it is called path parameter. ashokit.in courses Java full stack developer. So if you see YouTube, question mark V is equal to video ID. So if you are sending the data to the server in the key and value pair, that is called query parameter. If you are sending the data to the server directly value without key, then it is called path parameter. Okay. Now if you go to Ashok IT website, in this Ashok IT website, courses offering, there are multiple courses available. Java full stack development, Spring Boot with microservices. When you send the request to courses offering, then you are getting so many courses. Okay. In these courses, I want to get particular course information. Whatever the UI you are seeing, this is Angular. This is a front-end application. My back-end is separate, my front-end is separate. My front-end is Angular. My front-end project developed by using Angular. My back-end project is a REST API. My back-end application is a provider. Okay. Now, my Angular application want to get all the courses. Okay. No need to send any data. I want to get all the courses available in the Ashok IT. Yes, I got it. From these all courses, I want to get the information about Java full stack developer course. Particular course data I want to get. Then when you click on view more button, then what is happening? In the URL, that particular course name is going to the server. Directly I am sending the course name to the server in the URL. So that means my consumer application, my Angular application playing the role of consumer. My consumer application sending course name to the server in the URL. Directly course name it is sending in the URL. There is no key, direct value. If you send a direct value, it is called path parameter. But if you go to YouTube, when you click on particular video, it is sending video ID to the server in the URL, that is key value. If you send the data to the server in the key value format, that is called query parameter. If you send direct value to the server in the URL, it is called path parameter. So when you are sending get request to the server, there is no request body. Then how to send the data to server? By using URL. In that URL, in two ways we can send it. One is by using query parameter. Another one is by using path parameter. Query parameter will represent data in key value format. Path parameter will represent data directly in the URL. Are you able to understand how to send the data to server by using get request? There is no body. Only option to send in the URL. How many ways we can send in the URL? Two ways. Query parameters, path parameters. So here I have given YouTube example. YouTube is using query parameters and I am using Ashok IT as example. Ashok IT is using path parameter. And one more thing. So if you go to Ashok IT website, careers, here there is option called software job options available. So recently we started posting job openings in our website. Software jobs option is available. When you go to software jobs, careers option, software jobs option, multiple jobs which are having the openings I have posted. Swiggy hiring Java developers, IBM hiring Java developers, Accenture hiring Java developers. So that means software job openings. When I send this request, I'm getting all the job openings which are available in our website. Get request. I want to get the data. Now, after getting the data, I want to open IBM company related opening. So when I click on apply now, see currently the URL is software job openings. When I click on apply now, that IBM hiring Java freshers, that is going in the URL. I want to get the IBM Java developer company opening details. Okay, so this is again another path parameter. It is again another path parameter. So consumer is sending the data to the provider in the URL to get more information about particular ID or particular product. Okay, now if you go to suppose for example interview questions available. Okay, go to Python. So for Python, there are multiple interview questions available. If I click on top 50 core Python interview questions and answers, when I click on this, then it is going top 50 Python interview questions answers in the URL. So the data I'm sending from consumer to provider in the URL to get the record. So that is path parameter. If you go to YouTube, if you play particular video in the YouTube, that video ID will go to the YouTube. Now if you see, when I play shorts in the YouTube, directly video ID is going, directly ID is going. When you play normal video, it is going in the form of key and value. When I click on short, directly ID is going to the server. So sometimes they are using path parameters, sometimes they are using query parameters. Are you guys able to understand? What is the purpose of the main purpose is same. I want to send some data from consumer to provider in the GET request. GET request does not have a body. Then what is the option? You have to send in the URL. How to send in the URL? Either using query parameter or by using path parameter. In the YouTube, I have shown you both. When you play normal video, it is sending as a query parameter. When you click on the shorts in the YouTube, it is sending direct ID as a path parameter. Now you see here, when I go down here, how the short ID, this short I am getting from the YouTube. When I scroll, the ID is changing. When I scroll the video, for this short video, there is an ID in the YouTube database. So that ID they are sending. Now when I scroll up, again, my video is coming, my video ID is coming here. So there is no key, direct value. So when you are sending direct value, this is called as a path parameter. So sometimes they are sending the data in the key value format. Sometimes they are sending the data directly. If you are sending the data in the key value format, if you play normal videos, it is sending in the key value format, question mark, key is equal to value. But when you click on the shorts, so youtube.com shorts, directly video ID is going. In the Ashok IT courses, Java full stack developer, particular course name I am sending to get more information about the course. These all are the GET request URLs with query parameters and path parameters. So now you got the clarity. What is the purpose of query parameters and path parameters? Guys, what is
Query
the purpose
parameter
of?
provides key and value format.
What is the purpose of, first of all, what is the purpose of these query parameters and path parameters?
To send data to the server using
particular
Data to the server.
To send the data to the server in the
The
URL.
request body format.
To send the data to the server in the URL. Why we are sending data in the URL? Why we need to send the data in the URL?
Take the particular data in the
No.
To
It does
get
not support
particular
request
We
body.
want to use
Get
GET
request
request.
does not contain the body.
Because our request is a GET request, guys. For the GET request body is not available. That's why I am sending in the URL. If the request body is available, why I will send in the URL? I will send in the body only, right? Because body is always safe. Body is a secret. If I send in the URL, it will display for others also. For example, I want to send the password. So can I send password in the URL? Is it recommended? If I send password in the URL, then what will happen?
Everybody know.
Everybody will see that. So that means always it is not recommended to send the data in the URL. Suppose you are sending some password, you want to send your ATM pin, you want to send your credit card number, you want to send some secret data, some sensitive data. Such kind of data we should not send in the URL. If your data is not sensitive, like employee ID, book ID, course name, YouTube video ID, is there any secret in that data? Book ID, employee ID, YouTube video ID, my course name. Is there anything to secure? Is there anything related to secret? No. If your data is not secret, if your data is not sensitive, then you can send the data in the URL, no problem. But if your data is sensitive, passwords, ATM pin number, credit card numbers are available, then you should not send in the URL. Then you need to go for the body. So if you want to go for the data in the body, then GET is not supported. GET is used to get the data. When you want to get some specific data you want to get, which is not secured, that you can send in the URL. How to send the data in the URL? Two options available. One is by using query parameter. Another one is by using path parameter. Are you able to understand my point?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, do we have anything like it is recommended to use query parameter in this scenario and
I will
path
come to that
parameter?
point. So I am not concluding that. I will tell you in which scenario we should go for query parameters, which scenario we should go for path parameter. I will tell you that. First, let's try to understand how to use them, how to work with them. Then we will take a decision when to go for query param, when to go for path params. Able
Yes,
to follow
sir.
me, guys? Yeah. So can anyone tell me what is get request? What is query parameter? What is path parameter? Come on. I want revision in the class itself. So whatever the time that you are spending on the Sunday, that should not be wasted. I don't want to waste your Sunday. Okay. So you are spending 3 hours with me on the Sunday. So definitely I need to justify these 3 hours of time. I need to give you very valuable information, valuable content for these 3 hours of time you are giving to me. Yeah. Can anyone tell me what is get request? When to go for get request? How to send the data to server in the get request?
Get request is just used to get the data, like get the response.
Get request is used to get the data from the server. Consumer want to get some data from the provider, then consumer will send a get request to the server. Consumer want to send some data to the server in the get request. How can we do that? Consumer want to send some data to the server in the get request. How can we do that?
In two ways.
In two ways, query parameter and path parameter.
One is by using query parameters, another one is by using path parameters. Because why we are sending the data as a query parameter, path parameter, even though they are not safe? There is no option.
It doesn't have the body.
There is no option because get request don't have any body. So that is the reason we are sending the request with the data in the URL. Query parameters and path parameters. Where we can see query parameters and path parameters in the YouTube. Can you see query parameters and path parameters? When you play normal video in the YouTube, it is going with the query parameter. Video ID going with the query parameter. When you play shorts in the YouTube, direct video ID going as a path parameter. So what is query parameter and what is path parameter? What is query parameter? It is used to send the data from consumer to provider in the URL. Okay. So it is used to send the data. What is query parameter? It is used to send data from client to server in URL. Okay. It represents data. It represents data in key value format. It represents data in the key value format. Query parameter, it will start with the question mark. Okay, in my keyboard question mark is not working. Let me take on-screen keyboard. So it will start with the question mark. If you see, whenever you go for this one, always it will start with the question mark. It will start with the question mark and it will be separated by and symbol. So when you want to send multiple query parameters, right? So first query parameter will start with question mark. Second query parameter will start with and. Key value, and key value like that. It will start with question mark and it will be separated by and. When we have multiple query parameters, they will be separated by and symbol. And it will present only only at end of the URL. So whenever you are dealing with the query parameters, always your query parameter should be available at end of the URL. Now let me go to YouTube and let me show you the demo. Go back to the YouTube. So in the YouTube, there are so many videos are available. Okay. So let me play particular video in the YouTube. Let's go to our channel, view our channel and click on any video. For example, Spring Boot full course in 3 hours. So when I click on this video, can you see one query parameter is going to the server or two query parameters are going to the server? Can you check my URL? One query parameter is going or two query parameters are going to the server?
Two, sir.
Come on.
Two, sir.
Query parameters are going to the server. So let me take this URL and let me show you. So this is the URL www.youtube.com/watch ? V is equal to ID and T is equal to time. So from which second the video should play? Which video should play? From which timestamp that video should play? Two values are going to the server. So question mark. Up to watch, this is a URL pattern. Watch URL pattern. Question mark. V is equal to video ID and T is equal to time. So from 7190 second that video should start play. Okay, so like this you are going to use query parameters. Query parameters, it is used. What is query parameter? It is used to send data from client to server in URL, and it will represent data in the key value format. It will start with question mark and it will be separated by and. So when you have multiple query parameters, they will be separated by and query parameters always will represent only at the end of the URL. Once your URL pattern completed, at the end only that query parameter will come. And to read query parameters in the REST controller method, we will use request param annotation. So to read query parameters from the URL, we will use @request param annotation. So client is sending query parameters. Now I want to read that query parameter. Client is sending a query parameter. I want to read that query parameter. To read that query parameter, we are using one annotation which is called @request param annotation. Okay. Now, so let me write one example. So let me take one more REST controller in the project. Already two REST controllers available, right? Now let me create one more REST controller which will deal with query parameters. So let me create new Java class. I'm taking this as product REST controller. I'm taking one more REST controller called product REST controller. Can you tell me how to represent this as a REST controller?
REST controller annotation.
How to represent this as a REST controller? REST controller annotation we are using. Let me write one method. Public response entity. I'm returning some string. Okay.
Why do you use an angle bracket here in this?
Get product info. Okay. Here I want to take integer ID. Now what I will do is string message is equal to some null, and I will specify if ID is equal to 101, then message is equal to this is Apple product. This is Apple mobile. Get product info, ID is equal to 1. Then I will say Apple mobile price is something like 85,000 INR. Okay. Else if ID is equal to 102, then I will say message is equal to Samsung mobile price. I'm going to say this as 65,000 INR. Okay. If the ID is not 101 and 102, I will say message is equal to no product found. No product found. Now I want to return this data. Okay. Return new response entity. The body is a message and the status is http status.ok. http status.ok. Are you clear with my point? So I'm taking ID as a method parameter. So based on the ID, I'm deciding what response I need to send. So how the ID will come? ID will come as a query parameter. Get mapping slash product. How I will get this ID? As a request param. As a request param, key is ID. So earlier, message REST controller method not taking any parameters. Direct method is available. Book REST controller also not taking any parameters. But now my product REST controller is taking ID as a parameter. How I am expecting ID here, guys? How I am expecting ID? At the rate request param. So can you tell me what is the purpose of at the rate request param annotation? Can anyone tell me what is the purpose of request param annotation?
To get the data from the query parameter.
Yes, to get the data from the query parameter. What is the meaning of query parameter? What is the meaning of query parameter?
Inside the URL, we will send the data in the
query
form of key value
parameter
pairs.
is used to send the data from client to server in the URL. Query parameter is used to send the data from client to server in the URL, and it represents data in the key value format. And it will start with a question mark and it will be separated by and. Question mark represents starting point of the query parameter and represents another query parameter. Okay, if you are having multiple query parameters, they will be separated by and. Okay, so it will present only at the end of the URL. Once all the URL is completed, then our query parameter will start. Key value. To read query parameters from the URL, we will use @request param annotation. Okay, now I am taking one REST controller which is called product REST controller. To represent this class as a REST controller, I'm using @REST controller annotation. In that I am taking one method. That method is mapped to get request, get mapping slash product. So to get the particular product data, we need product ID from the client. So client will send the product ID as a query parameter. Key value. To read the data from the query parameter, we are using annotation called @request param ID. ID is a key. Okay. Now, so let me start this application, run this application. Product REST controller is available. Request param, it is expecting. The method expecting request param ID. Key is ID. And the URL pattern is /product. Key is ID and the URL pattern is /product. Now clear the console. Any confusion in the method, guys? Any confusion in the code? Simple. We are writing one get request method. It is returning response entity with string message, text plain. Request param, I'm taking a method parameter called ID. That ID we are getting from the query parameter. To read the data from the query parameter, I'm using one annotation called request param. Go to Postman. So /product. Suppose if I send the request without ID, my method is expecting ID, request param, but I am sending the request without ID. Send that request and see what will happen. What happened, guys? What is the status code we are getting?
400. Bad request.
400.
What is the status code we are getting? 400. Is it a server problem? 400 means is it a server problem or is it a client problem?
Client problem.
Is it a server problem or is it a client problem?
Client problem.
Client problem. What is the problem?
URL
Server
to send
the
query parameter question mark ID.
Is it a client problem or is it a server problem?
The client problem.
Client problem. What is the client problem?
A URL pattern is not
We are not giving
Boss, you are sending a get request to /product URL pattern. That /product URL pattern method is expecting one ID, but you are not sending that ID. That is a bad request. You are not sending that ID because it is expecting ID. You are not sending that ID. That means it is a bad request. Now let me send the ID product. Suppose 200 I'm sending. Okay. Click on send 200. When I send 200, what it is saying, guys?
Not found.
404. 200. How I am
Not
sending 200? Am I sending it as a query parameter? Am I
Path
sending it as a
parameter.
path parameter?
Path
Path
parameter.
parameter
But
you are
what my
sending
method is
to
expecting?
Expecting
query
query
parameter.
parameter.
How to send query parameter?
Question mark
Question
Question
mark
mark
equal
ID
to
equal
T
to
ID
200.
is equal to 200. Key, that is question product question mark. Okay, I need to use a question mark here. So question mark ID is equal to 200. Yes, I'm using, so product question mark ID is equal to 200. What is the meaning of question mark ID is equal to 200?
query parameter.
We are passing data as
So
a
click on
query.
send. I'm sending 200.
Key and value.
Now, what is the response status code I'm getting? 200. What is the meaning of 200? It is okay. 200 means okay. What is the response body? No product found. Now let me send this as 100. ID is equal to 100. So when I send ID is equal to 100, it is saying no product found. ID is equal to 101. When I send ID is equal to 101, Apple mobile price we are getting. So am I able to send the request along with query parameter? So how I am representing query parameter? Question mark key is equal to value. What is this key? That key we are using here. With which key the client consumer is going to send the request to the provider. With that key, we are reading the value, key comma value. Query parameters are used to send the data from client to server in the URL. To represent, we will represent the data in the key value format. For example, ID is equal to 101. Name is equal to some Ashok, something like this. ID is equal to 101. Name is equal to Ashok, something like that. It will start with the question mark and it will present at the end of the URL. It will be separated by and. How we will read the query parameters? To read query parameters from the URL, we will use one annotation that is called @request param annotation. To read query parameters from the URL, we are using one annotation called @request param annotation. Can I send multiple query parameters also? Guys, can I send multiple query parameters also?
Yes.
How to read multiple query parameters? Comma. So if you are sending name also, then I will take string name. Then how to read that name? Again, I will use @request param annotation. The key is name. Something like this. This is query parameter 1 and this is query parameter 2. So like this, your method can take multiple query parameters also. Your method can take multiple query parameters also. If your method is taking multiple query parameters, how we will send them? Question mark ID is equal to 101. Then what we will do?
Name is
And
equals to
name is equal to some Ashok. Something like this. Anything. Whatever that you want to send. Key and value. Key and value. They are separated by using AND. They are separated by using AND operator. So like this, one method can take multiple query parameters also in the form of key and value. Okay, next one. What is path parameter, guys? What is path parameter? Can anyone tell me what is path parameter? What is the purpose of path parameter?
We only send value in the
Yes,
URL.
it is used
Instead
to
of
send
key
the
value.
data from client to server in the URL. Path parameter will represent data directly. Okay, no key value. Path parameter will represent data directly. No key. No key. Example, YouTube short video. So when you play particular short in the YouTube, directly that ID is going. Okay. So this is path parameter value. path parameter will be represented in the URL template. Path parameter position will be represented in method URL pattern, because in the URL, where is that path parameter? Path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. So its position will be represented in the URL pattern template, in the URL template. Path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. Okay, so there is no rule. Query parameter should be available only at the end of the URL. Query parameter should be available only at the end of the URL. Question mark ID is equal to 101. But for path parameter, there is no rule like that. Path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. So that's why when we are writing path parameters, we will specify path parameter position in the URL template. Path parameter position we are going to represent in the URL. So let me take this method. Let me go for another method, get product name. Okay, here this is get product price. Right now, let me take another method, get product price. Get product price. This is
Sir,
get
above also
product
you have
price. This is
given
get product name. Yeah, get product name slash product slash ID, curly brace ID. So what is the meaning of this curly brace ID? Path parameter position in the URL, because query parameter means key value. So there is no problem, and always it will be available at the end of the URL. But when you go for path parameter, for the path parameter, there is no rule available that can be present anywhere in the URL. Path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. So that is the reason path parameter position should be represented in the URL template. So curly brace ID, that means in the URL, whatever the data is coming after product, whatever the data is coming in the URL, that is called path parameter. How to read the path parameter? To read the path parameter, we will use a annotation called path variable annotation. If ID is equal to 101, then I will say product name is Apple. I will say that product name is Apple. If ID is equal to 102, I will say product name is Samsung. If ID is not 101 and 102, I will say no product found. I will say that no product found. So here, when you go for query parameter, you no need to represent query parameter in the URL pattern, because query parameter always will present at the end of the URL, and it will have the key and value. Based on the key, you can read its value. But when you go for path parameter, that will be presented anywhere in the URL. Something like this also I can specify /info. So what is the meaning of this? Product ID info I want to get. So ID can be present in the middle of the URL. ID can be present at the end of the URL. So after product, ID is coming. Placeholder. This is representing position of the path parameter. After this /info, it can be anything. Or else you can write like this also. So this path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. Whereas query parameter will present only at the end of the URL. That query parameter no need to represent in the URL pattern, whereas path parameter we need to represent in the URL pattern. So after product, whatever the data is coming, that is a product ID. I will read that ID by using path variable. So to read the query parameters from the URL, we are going to use request param annotation. To read path parameters from the URL, we are going to use path variable annotation. What is the difference between them? So query parameters, path parameters, Both are used to send the data to server. Query parameter will send the data in the key value format and it will present only at the end of the URL. Path parameters can present anywhere in the URL. They will represent direct value without key. To read query parameters, we will use request param annotation. To read path parameters, we will use path variable annotation. So you can send multiple query parameters. You can send multiple path parameters also. Now let's test this method. Get product name, product price, which is taking query parameter, product name, which is taking path parameter. Stop it and let me restart my application. I'm restarting my application. One method is expecting query parameter, another method is expecting path parameter. Product with the query parameter will go to first method, product with the path parameter will go to second method. Okay, application is getting started. It's ready. Go to this one. So if I use URL product question mark ID is equal to 101, it will give the price of the mobile. Apple mobile price is 85,000. Suppose if I give product slash 102. So slash 102. What is the meaning of slash 102, guys?
We are passing path
variable.
ID as 102.
Yes, we are getting product name as Samsung. Product slash 102. This is a path parameter. Product name is Samsung. So if I send product question mark ID is equal to 102, we are getting the price of the product. So if you send query parameter, you are getting the price. If you are getting path parameter, you are getting the product name. Just I want to show you how to send path parameters and how to send query parameters to our methods. So if you send query parameter, it will give you the price of the mobile. If you send path parameter, it will give you name of the mobile. So how to send query parameters and how to send path parameters and how to read them. Are you clear? What is request param annotation and what is path variable annotation? What is request param annotation and what is path variable annotation? Are you guys clear with my point?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Sir, can I send ID at the starting of the URL itself?
Yes,
like,
you can keep it anywhere. That is what. So that means you can keep like this also /info. I'm writing product comma ID /info. After this URL, product is URL pattern. Then I'm keeping ID. Then I'm keeping info. So ID can go in middle of these two URL patterns.
Like ID product info.
Yeah, you can do that also. Here also you can keep your ID /ID/product/info, something like this. You can keep that ID anywhere in the URL.
So what is the benefit of this one?
So to construct some meaningful URLs, I want to get product ID details, something like that. If you want to construct some meaningful URLs, then you can keep path parameters in the middle of the URL, but generally we will keep at the end only. If you have any special requirement, you want to construct one meaningful URL, lengthy URL, then you can use that in the middle of the URL. Otherwise, at the end is fine.
Like in job applications, when you say your application is shortlisted or not, for that we'll use this.
I mean, anything, sir. If you want to construct some meaningful URL, product ID, product 101 get details. Like that, if you want to construct some meaningful URL, you can use path parameter in the middle of the URL. Otherwise, at the end also it is fine. Currently, query parameters rule. Always they will present at the end of the URL. Path parameters, it is your option. You can keep in the middle of the URL or you can keep at the end of the URL also.
So which one is recommended to use, like request param or query param?
Sorry, sir, I can't hear your question. Can you repeat, please?
So which one is recommended to use in real time?
That is a debate, sir. When to go for query parameter, when to go for path parameter, that is a debate. Currently, we are just understanding what is that, how to use it. We need to go for the comparison also. Okay, are you clear with HTTP GET request, guys? So today we understood how to create one REST API, how to create a REST controller, how to develop REST controllers with methods, how to map them to GET request, how to send a GET request from the postman, how to send the data to the GET request by using query parameters and path parameters. GET request is used to get the data from the server. We can say it is used to get the data from the provider. GET request will not contain the request body. Okay, so it is because the meaning of the GET request is only to get the data, not to send the data. But if you want to get some specific data from the server, then you can use query parameters and path parameters concept like this. I have shown you multiple live examples. YouTube videos, when you are trying to watch, it is sending video ID in the query parameter. YouTube shorts, when you are trying to watch, it is sending the short ID in the URL. So example 1, example 2, query parameters. Example 3, example 4, path parameters. Query parameter will represent the data in the key value. Path parameter will represent the data directly in the URL. So what is query parameter? It is used to send the data from client to server in the URL. It represents data in key value format. Query parameters will start with question mark and it will be separated by and symbol. And it will present only at end of the URL like this. At end of the URL it will be available. How we will read these query parameters in the REST controller method? To read query parameters from the URL, we will use @request param annotation. One method can take multiple query parameters also, there is no problem. And the next one, what is path parameter? Path parameter is used to send the data from client to server. When client want to send the request to the server, they will send some data in the URL. So path parameter will represent data directly without any key. So this is shorts, direct ID is available. So this one I will keep in the curly brackets so that you will understand it is path parameter. Path parameter can present anywhere in the URL. Path parameter position will be represented in the method URL pattern. So how do we read the path parameters? Path parameters are also called as URI variables. And to read the path parameters, we will use @path variable annotation. To read query parameters, we will use request param annotation. To read path parameters, we will use @path variable annotation. Now I have given the demo also. If you send question mark ID is equal to 101, it will give you price of that. And if you give /direct ID, it will give you name of the product. Question mark ID is equal to 101 /101. So if you give /101, that means it is a path parameter. If you give question mark 101, that means it will give you price of the mobile. So two methods taking two different types of input. One method is taking path parameter, one method is taking query parameter. Now the question is, sir, in which scenario we should use query parameters in our REST API method? In which scenario we need to use path parameters in the REST API method? When to use query parameter? In the YouTube we have seen both. YouTube is a very big application, right? In the YouTube I have shown you both. When you play particular video, it is going as a query parameter. When you play short, it is going as a path parameter. That means they are using both. So why they are using path parameter for the short videos and why they are using query parameter for the normal videos? So in which scenario we should go for query parameter? In which scenario we should go for path parameter? Can you guys do some analysis before I am going to give the answer? Can you do some research? When to use query parameter? When to use path parameter in the API development? Guys, come on.
Okay, sir. Sure.
So you have seen in the YouTube. In the YouTube, both available or both are not available?
Both are available.
So where
Yes,
YouTube
both are
is using path parameter? Guys, in which scenario YouTube is using path parameter? In which use case YouTube is using path parameter?
The playing part.
Playing specific videos.
For normal video playing, it is using video ID. It is sending video ID as a path parameter. In which scenario YouTube is sending video ID as a path parameter?
Multiple
playing
value,
short.
if you will send that case with the and, it will go to path parameter. If you will
You do
single,
some research. In which scenario we should go for path parameter, in which scenario we should go for query parameter. You do some research and you let me know in the next class. Guys, I have a request. Can we have class in the evening also? Today I am free.
Sir, please, sir.
No, sir.
No?
what time,
No,
sir?
sir.
Tomorrow we can meet. Not tonight.
We have time to practice now. You can practice these things in 1 hour and evening we can discuss about the post methods. Today we discussed about get method. I want to talk about post method. If all of you okay, then I can take the class in the today evening also. I am free today.
Sir, we can continue tomorrow, sir. We will practice.
Continue tomorrow.
Watch the class, sir.
Sorry?
Tomorrow lecture.
Tomorrow. Okay, no problem.
We can watch the class.
Okay, good guys, fine. So any questions? I will update the material. I will keep this in the Word document, all the examples that we have done today. I will update the notes in the portal. So before going to wind up for today, so do you feel the Sunday 3 hours is useful? Did I waste your time or utilize your time?
No, sir, not at all.
It's useful, sir.
Useful?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good guys. Thank you. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can leave for today.
Do you have class today evening?
No, people are saying no. If you are okay, I can take it. I don't have any problem.
Sir, get request is asynchronous, right?
Sorry?
Get request is asynchronous.
No, sir. Currently, whatever the requests we are sending, these all are the synchronous requests only. Maybe you are talking about idempotent. That is different. So whatever the get request, post request we are sending, these all are synchronous requests only by default. So what is synchronous, what is asynchronous, that we will discuss in the coming classes.
Sir, every YouTube video have unique ID, na?
Every video having YouTube ID, yes, sir, definitely. Otherwise, they can't identify, na? So for every video, a different ID will be available.
The ID
in the back end, they will store every YouTube ID, every YouTube video with a different ID. So whenever you play that video, whenever you click that video, based on that ID, they will get that video to play in the browser.
Upload video uploaded automatically.
Whenever you upload the video, then only they will take unique. They will generate a unique ID for every video.
Sir, any other alternate way to provide the security for get request?
Sorry?
Any alternate way to provide the security for get request?
Any alternate way to provide the security for the get request? Whatever the data that you are sending in the URL, right? That data you need to encrypt and you can send it. This is the only option. If you want to send some data in the get request, then definitely you need to go to the URL only. Okay. So if you want to send some data in the request with the security, then you need to encrypt this data and you need to send to the server. So if you want to send some security related data, then get request is not recommended. You need to go for the post request for that. So in the tomorrow session, we are going to understand how to send post, how to develop a REST API with the post request method, how to work with the post requests, that we will see in the tomorrow session.
Okay.
You got my point?
Yes, yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I want all of you to practice whatever we discussed in the today's session, guys. Whatever the API we have developed, I want all of you to practice the get request method, query parameters and path parameters before coming to tomorrow's session. Because if you don't practice now, then you can't understand. So whatever the 3 hours of time we spent on the Sunday, so give some value for that. Right? Without practice, you can't understand this API development.
So tomorrow online and offline class?
I will come to offline, sir. Is there any difference between offline and online? Anyhow, my video I am sharing. Which difference lag raha hai kya?
Sir, online audio is clear, sir.
Sorry?
Online is audio is very clear, sir.
Which one is good?
Online, sir.
Online is good.
Online is good, sir.
Okay.
Online is good, sir.
So if you want, I can come, sir. Because all people are not coming to the offline. Only 3-4 people are coming to the offline class. So people are not interested. That's why I'm also continuing in online. That is the reason. If you all of you want to come to offline, then I will also come. I don't have any problem.
For me, coming to office at 9 o'clock is a big task, sir. If you are keeping it online, then I would need to know before only.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
all the offline people discuss in the group. If you guys want to come to offline, then I will also come. Otherwise, we can take online also, no problem. Anyhow, you are asking your questions, doubts, clarification, everything that you can do in the class itself. So still, if you want to go with offline, then definitely I will come. I don't have any problem. You guys discuss and let me know in the group.
Raise a poll, sir. in WhatsApp.
Okay, good. Any other questions, anyone from today's session?
Sir, one thing like in the response
tell me.
entity, right? Like I've seen like you are using this
Sir,
angle
your
bracket.
voice is
Like you
not
want to talk
audible,
on
sir.
that? Sir, the angle bracket we are using in response entity. Do you want to talk on that one? Like why do we use that?
This angle, this bracket.
Angle brackets like response
This is
entity.
a generic
Angle
type, sir.
brackets.
That means what type of response that you want to send. You can keep it as a string type. That means what is your response body data type that you can specify as a generic. This is a generic type.
Okay. Okay.
Generic. That means what type of data you want to send. So which data you want to send as a response now that you can represent as a type here. That is a generic type.
Okay.
Good. Fine, guys. Then thank you. So in another 10 minutes, I will upload the notes also. So please do the practice before coming to tomorrow. Tomorrow we have class at regular time 9:30. Tomorrow we will work on post, put, delete request methods in the REST API. So please do this practice before coming to tomorrow's session. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Happy weekend.